Showtime. Hello. Welcome to Noir to the Rescue. I'm Peter Karloftis, Three Rooms Press. We're here in New York City, in the heart of Greenwich Village. The East Village would call me the West Village, but I'm more in the center of New York. And we're here to drive some business to the Strand Bookstore, which has been asking for help through this pandemic season. So we want you to go to the Strand Bookstore and buy books from Three Rooms Press and from our authors tonight, Gary Phillips, Christopher Chambers, and Alex Segura. They're all here now, and they're going to join me. We'll be posting all the links as you see below. There's Scavenger for Christopher's book, and there's Miami Midnight for Alex, and we have The Faking of the President with all four of us in it, and we have The Obama Inheritance. And we have, what's this one? Hold on. A Darker Mask, which I put on there since Gary's book, new book, Matthew HENSON and the Ice Temple of Harlem, isn't available at the Strand yet since it's so new. So we send you right to his publisher, Polis Books. But everybody, please go to the Strand Bookstore here in New York City at 828 Broadway at 12th Street and buy a book online. One of these books or any book, and send them some business. They're one of the great classic bookstores in the world, especially here in New York, one of the few remaining just testaments to the book itself. You know, the man who started it back in 1927, he was just an avid reader, and there were a lot of bookstores that were on 4th Avenue, a little bit downtown, and there were all these bookstores, and he opened his own. And eventually they got over there to where they are now. They own the building. And his son came in and his daughter also, his son's daughter, his granddaughter. So they've been running this place a long time and they need to stay in business. So let's buy some books from the Strand and let's have Noir to the rescue. I'm going to bring up our authors here and find friends of mine. Here's Gary Phillips. He's out in L.A.
Hey, everybody.
How you doing, my friend?
I'm fine, Peter. How are you?
I feel good. I feel good. It's I'm happy to be doing this show. When we get doing this sort of thing and we're talking books and talking about what we do and creating a better world than what we've is hitting us bombarded with. We're talking about having the ideas and opportunity to be somewhere else. I think that's a good thing.
Right
so I'm always happy to be in that position.
Very good.
And escape and have others escape with us. So we'll start talking about your new book and other books we've done. Let me bring up Christopher Chambers. There he is. He's got a new book with us, Scavenger, and we'll be talking with him about the books and ourselves and this writing thing we do and Noir and the Strand Bookstore, our own connection to it. And please welcome here Alex Segura. He's another New Yorker.
Hey,
how
guys.
you doing?
It's good to see you.
All right.
Alex.
Hey, sorry about the technical issues getting on here.
You didn't have any. See, we don't have to tell them that. So. What are you talking about?
That's right. What are you talking about? It's all smooth, baby.
It's my default excuse for being a minute late.
That's it.
No, you weren't late at all. You were on there. I had to, just carry on here, and I was going to do it anyway. So there is no wrong.
I was late because my brother-in-law's Christmas present came.
What'd you get?
I'm playing with it, and it's an official Robbie the Robot.
Oh, right on. Well,
that's good.
Right on.
I have to transport you to the residence.
Now, it took me a while to find that. So
great.
All right. Well, that's a good thing to play with. Maybe we want to bring him up again.
Yeah,
hey, I'll take it out of the package and say lost in FedEx.
If we hit a wall or something, we need to break, through to the other side.
That's right.
Like I was saying. So we're here for the Strand. We're Noir to the rescue is our, kind of our thing tonight. That's our pitch line. Anyhow, let's move on into the Miami Midnight.
There you go.
Hold on a second. I've
got always hold up the book.
Yeah.
I've got your here's Miami Midnight right along the bottom. Look at that.
That's it.
You go to the Strand and you can go onto our comments right now and click on that to Miami Midnight and go right to the Strand Bookstore and order Alex's last part of the series for Pete Fernandez, Miami Midnight, and he's set in Miami, right? It's got to be. It can only be Miami.
Hence the name.
Okay, so we'll be talking about Pete and what else you're doing and what's coming for the future and that sort of thing. We also have where's Ticker? Oh, this is Ticker. Here we go. And we also Gary has a new book which is not available at the Strand yet, but you can get it right here from Polis Books. And if you go,
they can probably order it at the Strand, though.
No, they can't. It's not on their website. I mean, I've worked with the Polis. I worked with the Strand, and they didn't put it up there yet. But don't worry about it. We want you to have your book, and we'll be talking about Matthew HENSON and the Ice Temple of Harlem. And we also have Christopher's new book. It is The Scavenger. It's I have that here, right here. We've got two of them. There you go. So that's a good deal. And then if we go to this one, maybe all four of us can.
Yes,
we can
exactly.
Do we have that? No, that's all right. I have it.
Exactly.
Thank
you have it.
President.
You'd have it.
All right.
Well, we did it in. It came out in May, and we've had a real successful run with that this year. Talking about this administration and many others before us who had a lot to be desired, and when we could fictionalize them, they even have more to be desired. So we can expose.
It made a difference.
That's right. That's right.
It did.
Exactly.
It made a difference.
Let's put a point on it.
That's right.
Congrats.
We believe that, and then we also
because you actually can't fictionalize this particular administration. You can't.
No,
it's beyond. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I think there'll just be a never-ending series, like not season 5 of The Apprentice. It'll just be a never-ending series of this guy, and he'll never be. He's not coming back.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get canceled pretty soon, I guess.
Right.
48 days.
Yeah.
So I think today is 48 days. So I heard anything could happen, but he's been so lazy and so incompetent that what could he actually accomplish in 48 days?
He likes the idea.
I'm not egging him on because his mind is going too fast to even hear what I have to say. He's just he's not here with us. His kingdom is not of this earth.
Yeah. It's another dimension.
That's right.
I call him, like I was telling Gary earlier, Mr. Orange now, like in Reservoir Dogs. So, hopefully he has a similar outcome as Mr. Orange.
I just call him 45 because that's the only thing I know that's technically true about him. He's the president, for better or worse.
I thought it was funny, just a quick reference that when they said how many children were missing or locked up, the number was 545.
Wow.
And they printed it every minute just to show 45. And when Biden came on, he said 544. I thought it was hysterical, that he changed it just to not hear the word 40, the number 45 again. Yeah. I mean, it's insane. The ego. The ego. I mean, we should have such an ego. We'd probably be very successful. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't mind. I like being modest.
Yeah, me too.
Keeps me humble.
So anyhow, enough of this fellow. Christopher, let's talk about Scavenger. Gary, I'm going to bring you and Alex up in a minute. Let me get with Chris for a second.
Sure.
And Chris, how are you?
I'm good.
How's DC?
It's a little scary now with COVID, but it's there we go. It's getting better. There seems to be a better mood in the city, and we're getting back to normal, just regular drive-by shootings and drugs and stuff.
Well, that's good. And your character in Scavenger is he's a compromised individual. He lives on the street. He's homeless. He had a life at one time that looking pretty rosy, but through abuse and his own self-abuse, drug abuse, and just kind of lost it along the way. And he has a chance to redeem himself here in your novel. I love this opening of this review. It says novels written from the perspective of homeless substance abusers don't come along every day, but when they do, it's a good idea to pay attention since they offer a window into the casual cruelty of our social economy. I think that's a very astute observation about, you know, what there is to begin with Scavenger. How did you come about starting off with a character who was in this position, homeless, and build him from there?
Well, I mean, from two perspectives. One, kind of a literary craft perspective, was, you know, I was looking at trying to take the new style DC novel that you know, Ed Amar and Cheryl Head and George Pelecanos were talking about on NPR yesterday, and taking that to another level. The only problem is, because of gentrification, other kinds of considerations, you know, the crime aspect had been done, you know, done well, but also done to death. So I needed another perspective, and the better perspective, you know, of looking from the down, looking up, because that's what, you know, we're doing now, rather than the typical DC novel, which is the power elite and the money looking down. The only other level there was to go to, you know, the homeless, and a homeless vet at that, and a homeless vet on Hooked on Spice. There's a lot of these folks as anesthesia or escape, which are the two principal reasons, are on any number of narcotics and booze, many of them, and I figured that would be a good starting point. The second point is a reality-based one. These are based on people I see every day in my neighborhood when I go get my coffee or walk my dog.
They're in the city.
You know, you get your coffee and you walk your dog. You don't stop and talk to them. And the craft part of it forced me to open my eyes and stop and talk to them. And when I did, I realized not only do they have a truth, everybody has their own truth, but I also realized that in terms of a crime fiction, outline, you know, these people had stories to themselves, and they had stories where they were their own law enforcement or their own detectives, you know, their own sleuths, where they had to noodle out what was going on because they couldn't go to any traditional power structure to ask for help or ask for justice. No. And their justice was, and also their justice was never, you know, I'm going to find out who stole my shoe, that I'm going to murder him. It was I want to find out why they did that, or who are these kids that are beating me up all the time, and why are they doing that, or why did they steal my sister's clothing, or she's on the street down, you know, somewhere else. I mean, it was very personal, hyper personal stuff, but they noodled through this stuff because most of them were, you know, functioning individuals at one time, and so that really moved me to try to craft something around there that would use the city, and the city as is, not the city as idealized, or even the city as it was. If you're looking at, say, George's books, Pelecanos' books, set in the 90s, is a very different place.
Yeah.
As most cities probably are, even Miami, even LA, even New York, even New Orleans. But here it is definitely a night and day situation. So I was trying to like create noir in that new kind of a milieu, and you know, that's Scavenger came about, and Dickie Cornish, the character, you know, is catching on as a, you know, as a figure.
Well, I certainly believe that you know, your novel, its setting, Washington D.C., is important to the story and the drive and the experience as Hammett's Frisco and Chandler's L.A. You know, I mean, it's just that much you know, a part of the fabric of every second, and a lot of people have admired that and seen how important it is to see a city at that point, from that place, and that way you could see some other things, maybe, or see some things you don't really know about your own experience and expand your thinking about how to help, how to defund, which it might be a wrong word as people are saying now, but I personally think that it's a word that needs to startle. The non-startling words aren't doing shit. You know what I mean? So let's startle and let's move on. And that's what you've done, I think, with Dickie. So you want to read a little bit from the book?
Well, I mean, just a little bit. I wanted to
Okay.
show. Let me see if I can find something that's short, but shows you the kind of dichotomy of powerful and powerless. And this is when Dickie gets picked up by Jamie Brock and Jamie Brock's lawyer, bailed out of jail and shoved in their limo. And
They have him in the limo, yeah.
Yeah, they're interviewing him, but yet mocking him at the same time.
Okay. Well, I'll let you take off on that, and I'll be back when you're done. And then we'll get Gary and we'll get Alex, and then we'll come back and all experience.
Okay.
Ourselves. All right.
All right,
go
here
ahead.
we go. Mr. Brock, please. No, call me Jamie. I want us to be friends. Hey, help me settle this with Sandy. Eons ago, when I was working as an intern in the Senate, I always had to take New York Avenue into work when we were slumming in Maryland. Rain or shine, there was this black dude naked from the waist up, scars zigzagging on his chest, no left arm, a friggin' mess. The limo stops, and from the front, the crew cut au fait grunts over the intercom. Valet or garage, sir? Brock commands, no, take us over to F Street so Dickie can eat. Then drop Sandy off at the firm. Thank you, Mr. Sugars. Okay, anyhow, this fucker was a mess. Always at the Bladensburg Road light where the traffic gummed up. Outboard. The suits are crisscrossing squints and grins at that. You repeat, his name. Outboard. Hold it, Brock stops you. As in motor? Oh, this is going to be a show. Yeah, his family they were black watermen on the Chesapeake Bay. Oyster barges, crabbing, for generations. But Albert, that was his name, Albert. He was schizophrenic, and his family couldn't handle the stress, the shame, the money. One day he fell off a boat dock. A boat propeller, fucked him up bad. Brock's blue eyes are wide as dinner plates as he claps his hands. I knew it! A propeller! Well, Albert, his name, passed 4 years ago. Sad. You hungry? He hits the intercom. Mr. Sugar, stop at the corner of 13th and grab our guests some lunch. Anything on the board of fare will do. I'll pay you back, sir. I got money. I doubt that. I mean, evictions that you can't make more money than panhandling with this yuppie bleeding hearts and these millennial little girls away from daddy. They can't keep you fed. Well, I've been doing the jump cruise for 3 years with one interruption. Oh, I'd call fentanyl and heroin an interruption, true. How did you know about that? Amazing how times are good for some and suck for others. He winks at you. Between us men of color, I guess that's pretty racial, huh? We have properties in countries where Donnie's a god and half the people are sitting on their asses collecting some form of government largesse, yet evictions are an issue. White people let white people slide, right? Easy to keep them in the net than churn and burn. He leans in and whispers, mobile home loans and rentals. That's how I make my money. Sir? Not a fan of The Graduate, huh, I guess. Plastics, it's a joke from a movie. Yeah. Directed by Mike Nichols. The late Buck Henry wrote it. Paul Simon wrote Mrs. Robinson just in time for the soundtrack. Brock grins. Wow, there goes your jigsaw puzzle brain on display again. But nah, his is a different sort of grin, like he's impressed. My counsel here, Mr. Buzzkill, thinks your brain's cluttered with that kind of stuff because you get high. I think it's the other way around. I think you get high to quiet that mind. And that is the hallmark of out-of-the-box thinking, eh? The grin evaporates. But given the drug abuse, living on the street, blah, blah, we still got to ask you serious due diligence questions. Ready? Sandy, he's yours. Play along, son. You are a spice addict. Smoke crack, cocaine, and meth, aka Tina. True? Yeah, but I'm trying. Okay, no. Yes or no is fine. Do you hallucinate? Have violent episodes? Catatonic states? You close your eyes and whisper, yes. Abuse alcohol, Xanax to even out your withdrawals and episodes? Yes. You are homeless, aka a vagrant, right? Mr. Nimchuk Mayor, he holds up a finger like the old friars at your grade school to stop you. Let me finish. You attempted suicide earlier this year. It was a hot dose. Yes or no? No. The lawyer shrugs, continues with, fair to say you are alive now because you are a resourceful person, a scrounger, a scavenger, using what no one else will, seeing what no one else can see. I believe Jay characterized your street rep as one who figures or examines, correct? Okay. Yes. Don't be embarrassed, Brock jumps in. Most humans are either predator or prey, but that third category, the scavenger, is unique. Can't have a predator or prey without it. Yes, sir. I guess you're right. And that's basically it. Give you an idea of him being interviewed for his first real job.
It's a good selection too, because you can
Wow.
see inside your character and how the world judges him and how he has to judge himself in that world. I think it's a great part of the book right there.
It's
So,
it's kind of almost standard noir too, where the protagonist is kind of outside of a world and he sees a little inner world, a little inner parlor world that he's not a part of. It's just that these are just, I just took the extremes and pulled it apart even farther. But you see that in all noir. There's he's the outsider or she's the outsider in this weird little container that follows their own rules.
yeah. Well, the main thing is that we want you to go to the Strand. See that little ticker along the bottom? See that link? It'll be on our comments here. And you can go directly to the Strand and order Scavenger and any of our books tonight or any book you want in the world. Just go to the Strand and order. That's what we're doing here. Let me bring up Gary and we'll talk for a second because I also have this. Hey, Gary, how are you? Welcome back.
Thank you.
We have the darker mask here, which I put on here because they didn't have the link to Matthew HENSON. So I wanted to get something else of yours on here that they can go to on the Strand. And also, Chris, you were in that as well.
You were
co-editors.
Yeah.
You were the co-editors in that. So here we are on the screen, 2 co-editors. You can go right to the Strand website and order this book too, The Darker Mask, which Walter is in as well, right?
That's correct. That's right.
So, and along with that book, we also have our Anthony Award winner, The Obama Inheritance, which is right here in my hands.
There you go.
And that was also with these 2 fine gentlemen, and Walter. Yeah. And so I'm going to let Gary. I'm going to talk to Gary for a little while, Chris. So you take it easy. And we'll bring you back up here in a minute. And I just want to say hello to Alex for a second, who's getting a little rusty on the side. We want to give you a little Oriole.
Enjoying the show.
Yeah. We'll have you up soon. Read from Miami Midnight, and then we'll all 4 be talking for a while. There it is. All right. So I'll see you in a minute. Gary, before we go on, I don't know if you ever saw the award for the. Did you ever see this Anthony Award?
I think I saw a picture of it, but that's the first I've seen it sort of live in person.
I'll go back. So
it
won't even fit in here. It's
exactly
it's like a woman's body that you can kind of, and then see there's like a and then there's like a bullet in it.
Yeah,
right there. If I can, here we go.
There we go.
And that's it.
That's it. There you go.
So that's our Anthony Award for the Obama Inheritance from 2018. We won. Let's hope we get at least a nomination this year in New Orleans
For faking.
for the faking of.
Right.
And so let me get your book up here. Oh wait, that's the faking of. We're going to get and your book, Matthew Henson, The Ice Temple of Harlem, is about a famous explorer who went around with Pierian. They made it to the pole, right? To the North Pole.
It made it to the North Pole, but that's the book is not about that. That's in the past, and what the book takes place in the sort of the last days, or sort of the last tail end of the Harlem Renaissance in 1928. So this is right before the crash of '29. But things are brewing. There's intellectual, political, social movements that are happening in Harlem.
Prohibition is like in its fullest form,
yeah,
right?
Well, exactly, and sort of in the context of that. I've reimagined Henson as more. I mean, he was an adventurer, but I've reimagined more as a kind of outsized adventurer in the kind of pulp tradition of Doc Savage and Indiana Jones. But in the context of that, though, we have real characters that he's coming up against, including Dutch Schultz, who was a gangster trying to move in on the numbers racket, which was controlled by black gangsters in Harlem. In particular, one person in the book that I have is Stephanie St. Clair, who was a real person. And I also have Bessie Coleman, who was the first black female aviatrix to get her license. Although she had to study in France because of racism to go to flight school, but she did get her license here back in the States. And even Nikola Tesla shows up as well. So it's all kind of in a heady mix. How could he not? How could he not? Exactly.
So go to Polis Books right here. This link right here, if you want to get a copy of Matthew Henson and the Ice Temple of Harlem. And if you want to get it from the Strand, call them up tomorrow and say, dude, you know what I mean? Put it on your website because it should be on there.
Well, they get that. Yeah.
You want to read a little passage there, Gary?
I have a little quick passage to read. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but essentially the bad guys have gotten a hold of our hero.
Take it away.
All right. He came to gradually and wasn't surprised he had a whopping headache. Henson groaned, shaking his head to clear the fog congealed in it. He was tied, spread eagle, to the secured upright frame of a Murphy bed, sans mattress. The room was sparsely furnished, but then again, Henson knew this place wasn't used to entertain guests. His shirt was on but unbuttoned, the sleeves loose as well. On a small wooden table, there was a coffee cup, an alarm clock, and a pair of black gloves. There was a water pitcher and bowl for washing your face on a nearby sideboard. Bulldog, his snap-brim hat off, sat at the table, leafing through a newspaper. He closed it as Henson tested his bonds. I win the bet, he said. What bet? Henson croaked. That you'd wake before midnight. My partner said I whacked you too hard, that maybe you needed medical attention. I said that burr head of yours was hard like a Mississippi mule's ass. He tossed the paper aside, letting it flutter to the floor. Now I can get to work on your black hide. Fuck you, Henson growled. Bulldog shook a finger at him. Now you should know, hell's coming, boy, coming for you. He slipped on the gloves. Stepping over to him, he hit Henson in the stomach, causing him to vomit. Ain't so tough now, are you? Should have been doing this to you sooner as far as I was concerned. You're going to spill all your guts tonight. Henson tasted the bile in his mouth and spat. Like I said, fuck you. Bulldog hit him in the jaw, snapping his head back and making the springs in the frame squeak. He reared back to strike him again when a door to Henson's right opened. In stepped Fremont Davis, who coolly regarded the prisoner. That'll be enough for the moment. I'm sure I can reason with Mr. Henson. He paused as if receiving a telepathic communication. You are, after all, a responsible sort, aren't you, Matt? Before Henson could respond, the other half of the Mutt and Jeff team entered the room. He was carrying a paper bag and removed his fedora. He put the bag on the table and placed a chair from a corner of the room. He turned it around so the straight back was toward Henson and straddled the seat as he sat. He folded his arms atop the edge of the chair's back and regarded the explorer. Henson was looking at Davis. Taking off the kid gloves, Fremont? You forced my hand, old son, he said. Henson considered this probably meant he wasn't going to get out of this alive. Even if he did, Who would believe them that government men and a millionaire had kidnapped him to give him the third degree to find a meteorite of cosmic power? What exactly can I do for you, Mr. Davis? He knew the answer, but any delay from getting wailed on gave him a better chance of recovery. Where can we find the space rock, the special one? I don't know. And why do you want it now? I'm guessing you've known or suspected it existed for a while. You know, all right. Bulldog came forward again, but Davis held up a hand. Jeff remained sitting, watching. Hear me out, Mr. Henson. Nobody's looking to cut you out of the recognition like what Perry did to you. You want to name the find after you? Okay, I can make that happen. You want your picture in the paper standing next to the stone from space? Fine, I can make that happen too. Davis knew Negroes liked their baubles. You know me enough to know I could give a shit about that. If that's what I wanted, I would have had it years ago. Then what? The goateed man said. You know damn well what. I want my cut, Davis. Really? Henson huffed. Yes, really, white man. You think I'm a fool? You think I don't know that the daughter is capable of? Shit, he sneered. The daughter is what they call this piece of meteorite. Bulldog jabbed a finger at him. You best watch your tongue. You ain't got the upper hand here. I don't? Henson challenged. You gonna beat me within an inch of my life to talk? I've suckled on polar bear tit and ate raw dog and smacked my lips for more, boy. I've marched through weather 30 below and took up my stiff dick to satisfy two Eskimo broads at the same time in a lean-to igloo while slurping down boiling penguin stew. Afterward, I had enough left over to chase down a walrus just so I could catch him and skin him to wear his big teeth around my neck. You figure to make me all a quiver like that dame you hired to get the drop on me? Go ahead. Bragging son of a bitch, Bulldog groused. We'll see. At a nod from Davis, Bulldog went to work on him. You and that Daddy Paradise think your shit don't stink, he grunted, driving a fist into Henson's ribs. Well, I got news for you, boy. You've been falling down on the job. Another blow to the body racked the prisoner. After more than a minute of steady pounding, he paused, panting from his exertions. Henson's head hung low and blood dripped from his mouth and cuts on his face. Davis, who'd been standing off to the side watching, came over. He gripped Henson's chin and lifted his head. He was surprised. The beaten man wasn't glassy-eyed. You can take it. I'll give you that, Matt, the rich man opined. Huh, Henson said, a slight smile on his face. If you kill me, you'll never find it, he managed to say. I'll make you talk, Bulldog vowed. Davis wasn't so sure, and time was not a luxury. Is it here in town? You have to have me along. You pale faces go alone, especially them flashing those badges. You'll get gutted. See, it's deep, deep in the jungle, he cackled. He's losing his mind, the shorter federal man said. No, I don't think so, Jeff said. His partner glanced at him, his gloves smeared with blood. You can beat me all night, and it won't make no never mind, Henson said. You can't get there until the daytime anyway. You're lying, Davis said. Okay, Henson shot back. How you know different? So that's a little sample of what's in the book.
Yeah, that's. I love the way you're weaving in all these different things. I read something today. Somebody wrote about a review saying you hit every note like that, like a jazz musician or something. There's a lot of notes to hit. Not easy to hit all of them, but I think the way that you weave this story, that you in putting all these pieces and people in their places, it's like it's like you can hit any note at any time, so you are hitting every note.
some of it's riffing and some of it's probably off key, but that's all right.
No, there is no such thing. I mean, of course, when someone is judging it, but not from your standpoint,
right,
or if you did it off key, you did it for a reason, then it's in. It's like what Miles said. He said, it's not what you note you hit, it's the next one. That tells them, whether you made a mistake. So
That's it. There
so,
you go.
Well, I love it. Here's the link to Polish books for Matthew Henson, The Ice Temple of Harlem. We also have.
But they can get our other books at the Strand.
Everything is at the Strand. Go to the Strand website. Order any book you want. But this one you can order if you have to have Gary's book right now, and you should go right here to the publisher and get it. But we also have The Darker Mask, which is down here, which Chris and Gary co-edited. And we have The Obama Inheritance up here.
Which Three Rooms Press published.
Yeah, Three Rooms Press. And Gary, we began with Crime Plus Music, right?
That's right. That's
We
true.
started out in this one, and
That's
then
right.
we came up
The
at
Gypsy City,
at
yeah.
VoucherCon.
That's
We
right.
came up there with your idea for the Obama inheritance,
Yeah.
which was riffing on the conspiracies. You know, what if we took like this QAnon? We'd be on our 73rd volume now.
Oh my
you know?
God! I know. It would just be too much.
It would be. It would be.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring up Alex.
Very
and we'll
good.
have a little chat, and then we'll let him read from his book. Hey, Alex, welcome back. It was a long time in the green room. I hope the M&Ms held out for you.
I only ate the blue ones. It was
Okay,
not
good. Weren't they worth money at one time if you found a blue one, or you could trade it in for something for life?
Oh
Or was
yeah.
it a great one?
Yeah, remember when they introduced the new M&M color? That was weird.
Yeah. So they said if you found one, did you win something, or what was that?
I don't know. I think it was like 10 or something.
Oh, okay. $10. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Gary, I'm going to bring you back up here in a short time. I'll put on the faking since we were in on that, and I'm taking you off, Gary. Hello, Alex. How are you? You
to see you.
grew up
Thanks
in
for having me.
Miami, right? You were a Miami native,
Yeah, born and raised.
Cuban descent. Is this true?
Yeah, my parents are Cuban. They came over.
Both Cuban. Okay, good. And now you live in Queens.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're in New York together, so here we are, the New Yorkers. You're stuck with the New Yorkers. Usually, the rest of America hates New York. You know, they hate everything New York. And around the time of 9/11, everybody loosened that hate for about 14 minutes, and then it came right back again. You know?
Yeah, it was good.
It was a nice respite for New York to have that sympathy for the rest of the country. But anyhow. Let me put on your book, which is Miami Midnight, the fifth and final in a series, the Pete Fernandez
Yeah, the
series.
grand finale. Yeah, it was a fifth book. You see Pete go through a lot of changes in the series, and that was really important to me, to not have it feel like an episodic private eye story where it's really just about the plot and less about the protagonist. I really wanted him to be very different from the beginning of each book to the end. And, by the fifth book, he's really inching close to deciding this is what I want to do. I want to be a PI. He's in recovery. He's he's reeling from the events of the fourth book, Blackout, where he almost lost his life. And he's kind of realizing, if I'm going to do this, I need to do it right and I need to do it well. But there's also some demons he has to deal with of his own past. And it's funny because this was a story that I knew I had to tell from the beginning of the series. I just didn't think I was ready to write it. And so when I knew I had one more Pete book to write, it kind of popped back into my head. And I knew I had to write about not only Pete becoming this private eye, but also dealing with a story we knew existed but hadn't told, which was the story of his mom and how she kind of disappears. You don't really hear about her in the series. You hear a lot about his dad, who was a homicide detective in Miami and died very suddenly, but there are just a few hints about who his mom was, and I really wanted to tell that important story here at the end as we kind of cap off his career, I guess. A lot of people, to my joy, once we announced that it was the end, complained, please don't end the series, which was great. But I just feel like we reached a point where we had 5 really exciting stories, and that felt really comprehensive. And maybe someday I'll come back and revisit Pete and his world. But it's nice. It's just nice to have an ending. I think endings are okay. We're in such the culture now is very much like, please give me more. And I'm very fond of stories that just end. And that's the arc and that's the narrative. And it's okay. It's okay to put a period at the end of the sentence.
You are the creator. And if you say that, believe me, I'm on your side. And maybe if a lot of fans start clamoring for more, you might be driven, or a story might grow and it might come. But at this point, how you feel is perfectly fine. And you have your own place to be. And so does every reader. And that knowledge in them also just is fulfilling to them. So you want to read a little bit from Miami Midnight?
Yeah. I mean, I'll talk a little bit about it and then read a section of it.
So please go to the Strand's link. It's on our comments, and order Miami Midnight or any of the Pete Fernandez books or any book that you want. Go to the Strand. They need our help right now. Get that book. Get the Star Wars book by Alex Segura. So
Yeah.
take it away, Alex, and we'll be joining you shortly.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. Yeah, thanks to the Strand. I mean, I've been going to the Strand since my first visit to New York forever ago. I won't bore you with my age, but thanks to the Strand and to Three Rooms Press for having us. And so Miami Midnight, like we said, is the last Pete Fernandez novel. And the big picture is, Pete has kind of retired to a quiet life, or as quiet as a life as you can get in Miami. He's running an indie bookstore. He's trying to keep himself safe and cautious, but he's also doing things that hint that he's preparing for something else. He's taking some self-defense classes. He's in therapy. He's obviously not drinking, and he gets summoned by an aging Cuban businessman who's actually a gangster to help investigate the murder of his son, who was a jazz pianist and was gunned down outside of a downtown Miami restaurant. And Pete and his partner, Kathy Bentley, are hesitant, but the gangster throws out a bit of information that makes it an impossible thing for Pete to say no. But the scene I'm going to read is a quick scene from the beginning of the book. It's the second chapter. And Pete is closing down his bookstore for the night when he finds an older man waiting outside his door, claiming to have some information about Pete's past. And so that's where we'll start. All right. Pete handed the older man a glass of water, then sat down behind his desk. The man's hands shook as he took a long sip. "You really know how to make an entrance," Pete said. "Though people popping in on me unannounced is starting to get annoying, Mr. Osvaldo," the man said. "Osvaldo Valdez." The name felt familiar, but the face was not. Pete waited a beat. "I worked with your father," Valdez said. "Not directly, but we were both in homicide together." Pete cleared his throat. "So you knew Carlos Broche, my dad's old partner?" Yes, Valdez said. "I know he died not long ago." Broche had been like an uncle to Pete and partnered with his father for most of Pedro Fernandez's time on the Miami homicide team. But it had ended badly for Carlos. On Pete's first case, trying to find a missing woman named Kathy Bentley, he'd uncovered the truth about Broche, that he, like many cops on the force, was corrupt, on the payroll of the Silent Death, a mob killer of killers who had his sights set on Pete. Varela, Posada, Smith, Vigil, I knew them all, Valdez said. Some were good, most weren't that good. Your father, though, he was a good man, an honest man. That's why this shames me. You mentioned my mother, Pete said, leaning back. What about her? What do you know of your mother? Nothing, really, Pete said, not hesitating. It was true. His mother had died while giving birth to him, leaving his father to raise Pete alone and deal with not only the death of his wife, but the murder of Pete's grandfather, Diego, a few months before. She died in childbirth, Pete continued. My dad had a few pictures around and he talked about her, but she was an only child. Her parents were gone. I didn't know that side of my family too well. Valdez grimaced. He didn't want to be having this discussion. It made Pete uneasy. This isn't the place, Valdez said, or the time, but soon. We have to talk. I have things I need to show you to prove what I know is true. Valdez stood up abruptly, as if just realizing he had somewhere else to be, and was running very, very late. That's all I can say now, he said, his gravel-fueled voice wavering. I made a promise to an old friend a long time ago, but I've grappled with that for too long. He is dead now. You deserve to know the truth. I just need some time to organize it. The rush of memory came then, a barrage of images and pieces of his life that Pete couldn't remember experiencing before. A hand wrapped around his tiny fingers as he crossed the street, a warm kiss on his forehead as he slipped to the floor, the sweet smell of tart sweat and the feel of her skin. Then screaming, muffled by walls, arguing, slammed doors, darkness and tears. Her face was a blur, a shape that was familiar but incomplete, like a figure under muddy water. He knew what she looked like, of course. He knew of her, from stories and pictures and things he assumed must have happened. How she fell in love with his father, how she lived, how she died. What were these flashes? Why was he imagining these things now? Had he really pushed away any thought of his mother that far down into himself? He'd never known her, never spent time with her. So what were these? Dreams? Projections? Hopes? Or something more? Memories? Pete shook his head. You can't just barge in here, say something vague about my mom and how she died, and expect me to let you leave. You have no choice. And don't put words in my mouth. I'll tell my story when I'm ready. Now is not the time. You're not truly alone, it seems like. What do you mean? I need your full attention to discuss this. Now, I know you're a good man, Valdez said. I've kept up with your exploits. I know you're trying to live a good life. Your father would be proud. Your mother, too. Let's talk tomorrow night. Here's my address. Valdez jotted down a little Havana address on a legal pad near the edge of the desk. Come by around 7, he said. Be patient, hijo. It will be worth it. Thank you for humoring a sick old man. Sick? What's the... But before Pete could finish his thought, Osvaldo Valdez was gone. That's it.
Alex, very nice.
Thanks.
He's got a life, and he started off. It was a little more compromised with life. He was had a lot of problems in the beginning at first that he had to kind of work his way out of.
Yeah, that's kind of the arc. You know, you want to show. I was really interested in kind of flipping the the trope of the hard drinking PI. I always have trouble with that as a reader because I don't think it's genuine. So I really wanted to show this guy has a drinking problem. How does he overcome that and then kind of reclaim his life? So that's really the big arc of the series in terms of Pete as a character. So showing him kind of reclaiming his life and becoming a relatively valuable member of society. And that was like the challenge of this book, you know, not only telling a great story and trying to tell a great installment, but kind of tying together all the threads without having it feel too trite, you know, like weaving in stuff from the first book, the second book. And I felt like telling the story of Pete's mom made it feel much more important than just another mystery. So.
That's good. That's a good touch. You know, we started off with the Florida Happens, the BoucherCon anthology that you have a story in. So you're in this. You're in BoucherCon anthology, and you're also in the Faking of. So the other two fellas, Gary and Chris, are in 3. So we got to get you to 3. We talked about the
Elvis Costello.
Elvis Costello. Now, I had a guy who works with John Batiste, and he had just done something with him, but he couldn't get his email from John Batiste. So now I've got 2 rock and roll guys. They're PR guys.
Oh, nice.
And I'm going to offer them some money to get me through to him, and we're going to make a pitch to Elvis, and hopefully that he'll do an introduction to it as well. He's going to be blown away by the idea, and then you're going to take over and get the greatest cast of writers in the history of
it'll be a great lineup.
And we'll so what are you thinking? Watching the detectives or pump it up? Which one?
Yeah, watching the detectives, Allison, obviously, Clown Strike, 13 Steps Lead Down.
For the title, what do you think would be most catchy? What do you think in your heart of hearts? It's all right. I didn't mean to put you on the
No, Blood and Chocolate. Blood and Chocolate.
Okay, it sounds good. Sounds good. Maybe we could give away chocolates with the book. I'm going to bring up Chris, who's been away a long time.
Hey,
we're going to get him back in the fold here. In fact, we'll put up Scavenger at the bottom. Go to the Strand, order a book, order Miami Midnight, order Scavenger. And we're going to bring up Gary as well. Here's Gary from LA. He's 3 hours earlier. He's got a date. He's got a whole life to live still. You still got supper and stuff coming.
Supper.
Man.
That's right. Supper. Because then Grandpa goes to sleep. So it's all good. It all works out.
Nice one.
We're all still we're all still in 2020, and the days dwindle down here. We got like 28 days, something left.
On the gas.
2020, man, is like I don't know.
A mother.
Yeah, it is. My thinking was that if 2020 were a movie, it would have been made in the 80s because the black dude dies first.
Right, that's it.
He's gone. So that was it. It's a 1980s movie.
That's it.
But I should have saved that joke and tried to sell it to Trevor Noah. I could have got $80 for it. But I want to share it with my friends.
That's it, baby. That's right. Death Shift 2020.
That's it.
Oh man.
What I wanted to go into here for a few minutes as we're talking about the Strand. I'm sure everybody's been in the Strand a number of times here. I first went in 1974 as a kid, a teenager, you know, and I spent a lot of time at bookstores, movie theaters in Manhattan from the Bronx. And, you know, I just spent a lot of time just sitting in there reading the books. I try to squeeze out any ones I could get enough money for. But one time in 1979, I applied there to work, and I probably would have been hired, except I also applied up the street. 13th Street was a place called Cinemabilia, which had all movie posters, movie stills, and all movie books, like old out of print from, you know, movie books, autobiographies, that sort of thing. The guy had a full, huge store, and he had one of the great collections of movie memorabilia. And the job there was to, you know, I could stock the stills and go through them, and I just loved old movies. So I took that job, and I used to get sent over to American Express office, which was right near the Strand, to drop off the receipts from the you know, the sales for American Express. So I would go drop them off and go right into the Strand. So I was still getting paid to be in the Strand, but I was getting paid by another bookstore.
Nice work if you can get it.
Yeah, it was. You know, I spent a lot of years, 40, whatever, how many years that is. I've spent a lot of time there, sold a lot of books there, bought a lot of books there. But the Strand is a very good place to support and keep afloat and keep them going. There's, you know, this, that, and the other. You can read about it, but he started the store. Benjamin Bass started in 1927. His son came along. They moved to Broadway. They were on 4th Avenue, and they moved to Broadway a couple of blocks uptown. And they've been there since 1957. And they own the building now. So, you know, it's not like they're, you know, going to go belly up. But they're a place that needs to be.
It's a big place. You got to move some books.
We have to move some books. So here's the faking. That's all 4 of us right here are in that book right down there. If you want a book to feature all 4 of us. But what I wanted to say is, I want to ask each of you how did Noir choose you, or did you choose it? Gary, you know, how did you actually come to want to create Noir and say that you could feel that was your calling?
Well, part of the answer I give is, of course, you know, I grew up in South Central in the era of, for those who are unfamiliar with that time period, we had an infamous police chief named Daryl Gates. And Gates is the one who, he didn't create SWAT, but SWAT was created at the LAPD, actually by a Vietnam vet, but Gates helped to usher it in, helped to make it what it was. And at those days, Gates is the one who brought out the what they call the battering ram, which is like this military vehicle, and he stuck a metal pole on the end of it with a kind of a flat piece of iron attached, welded to the metal pole, and he would, you know, ram this into people's houses, saying he was looking for the big crack dealers and stuff. This is the era of crack in the 80s. Mm-hmm. So all that to say is that, so taking that reality and then mixing it with, you know, growing up reading or stumbling into Chandler and Hammett, Ross McDonald, and then who are now, and then a couple of other writers who are sort of now considered the godfathers of street lit, Donald Goines and Iceberg Slim, particularly Iceberg Slim, since he wrote about what he knew. He had been a pimp and a drug pusher, and that's what he wrote about. I mean, so all that's in the mix, right? So all that's in my head, and so you're right. I think I guess to answer the question, Pete, is that Noir chose me. There was no getting around it. So, you know, you take those kind of realities. And you kind of
it was the environment, not breeding. So
right.
But you try to make, okay, that's an answer. You know,
that's an answer. Yeah, that's your story. But you try to make a sense of it. As you search for the narrative, then you try to make sense of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Chris,
I cannot forget. And of course, then also stumbling into to Jim Thompson. Once I discovered Jim Thompson, well, you know, that
I
was
agree with that one.
Yeah,
you know, tough to get out of that.
The die was cast. The die was cast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Certainly, yeah. And the goodest too, but
exactly right.
Definitely
that's right. Goodest too.
What do you think, Chris? Noir?
Well,
what part of that is you? Is it?
Well, a lot of it, believe it or not, is by going into places like the Strand and mysterious books. down there on Warren Street when I would visit New York. I mean, a lot of people that I've introduced you, Pete, to in my family. Like
Sure.
Dolores. I mean, visiting them.
I love Dolores.
Well, because when I was in, I grew up in D.C. and Baltimore. It wasn't until I was older that I knew what George Pelicanos was doing. When I was younger, and we talked about this in the NPR story when I called in a comment. The only thing to read in Washington were these thick Robert Ludlum books. And it's funny, they were saying, that's been obviated by Donald Trump. I mean, who can write you can't write a book like All the President's Men Again, or any of those big, thick 1970s hardcovers about Washington. So there really wasn't anything for me here but comic book stores. So in terms of prose, when I would go to New York, and we would go to the Strand, and then we'd go to Mysterious bookstore, and
he was still uptown then. I think he was like Midtown then on 56th Street, I think.
Yeah. And then there was a Strand up on Columbus, I think, too, which was closer to where my family was, and so. That was basically it. I mean, just going to New York and looking at that, and then looking at the movies, and then discovering Himes and people like that later. But again, not Himes' Harlem books, which were more like, as Gary knows, more like pulp than noir. But Himes writing his more kind of populist short stories and stuff like that. And so it all congealed there. So that's my story. Yeah. Oh, and I love, and Alex is going to love this. When I was in school, I loved Miami Vice, and I know that's kind of like pink espadrille noir, but it's still noir. And I mean that plus the music, and the whole environment. It kind of, for me, it kind of took away from the what was going on there in terms of reality and any wars between, say, the Cubans and Colombians. Or the war on drug type stuff that was coming from Reagan when I was in school. It really instilled a coolness there, and I could kind of pull that back from the cops too, because when you look at that whole lineup of people in that unit, you didn't even think they were in the real Miami Police Department. They were like their own, like Castillo, because Castillo is a cop, really.
Yeah. The theme. Can you hum the theme? It was a #1 hit, I think. A #1 top hit.
Yeah, I can.
How did the theme go? How did the theme go, Alex? Come on, you know it.
I'll spare our viewing audience.
#1 top hit at the time, I think.
Yeah.
Was it?
But Jan Hammer, was it? Or
yeah.
Jan Hammer, #1 top hit. It was an instrumental, and it's unbelievable. So that's how you began. And I agree again also with the fact that you go into bookstores and you discover these books. When I was a young kid, I'd sit in the middle of a used bookstore with stacks of old paperbacks from the 50s, Perry Mason, whoever it was, and I would wind up reading every one of them, and I'd take them back and trade them in 2 for 1, and the guy would get a couple of quarters out of me, and I would read everything there was. So that's how it happens. What about you, Alex? How did you come to noir? Did it come to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long boiling pot, I guess. I mean, my first quote unquote mistake was probably reading The Godfather at a very young age. I think I was 8 or 9, and just that was an awakening of some kind. And but I work in comics as well. Gary's written comics and Chris has written comics as well. I worked at DC as a publicist. That's when I moved from Miami to New York. And when your hobbies become your job, you start looking for other things to do. So I found myself reading a lot of mysteries, and I knew the masters like Chandler and Ross McDonald, but that I got turned on to Jim Thompson, like Gary said, and Jim was really an awakening. Just blew my mind. Just the killer inside me was a game changer. And then I started reading more modern PI writers, modern at the time. Like, we talked about Pelicanos. Definitely that was eye-opening, just to see a protagonist who wasn't already a PI, like someone who was growing to become a PI. And I started to see, a lot of these stories were so seeped in setting. You have like Tess Monahan in Baltimore by Laura Lippman. You have the Kenzie and Gennaro books by Lehane in Boston. And of course, Nick Stefanos in DC. And I thought, well, there isn't one from, this is just the hubris of youth. I was like, well, I'll do one in Miami. I'll do the Miami one. And so that's when Pete kind of showed up in my head. And I started pecking away at this book, and that was all happening while working in comics, and so it became this side thing. And I just have the bad habit of turning my hobbies into careers, I guess. So, did Peter just jump or?
No, exactly. There he is. There he is.
Okay.
No, don't worry. Keep talking. This happened the last time.
Yeah.
You guys carried the ball, and when I got back on, they were gone, so I closed the show. But we can handle it. Just you guys are cool. You're in the biz. We've done 2 books together, Alex. The other 2 guys, we've done 3. You're me, and I'm you. So just carry on. Don't worry.
No worries.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and so that was what kind of got me started. This idea that I could create my own Miami PI, and I wanted to see myself. You read a lot of the classics, and it's usually a middle-aged white guy who's a former cop, and I wanted to see someone who had my background and spoke Spanish and was Cuban,
right.
and and I think that's a lot. Those are important stories to tell, to just widen the spectrum of stories, and we shouldn't feel like everything should go through this narrow pipeline.
Right. I think Alex has hit the right point there, which is to say, I mean, that's really how I got to, my first PI novel, my first published novel, which was a PI story, which, I always knew it was going to be a PI story, which was the Ivan Monk book, but it was set, very called Violent Spring. It's set very specifically at in the aftermath of the events of 92 in Los Angeles, which is part of that thread, right? I mean, it's the events of 92, in terms of the Rodney King riots to some, and the civil unrest to others, but coming out of the trial where the 4 cops are exonerated for beating the shit out of Rodney King, that's kind of important because that's also under Gates. That's sort of the tail end of Gates's legacy, but I wanted to. I guess capture that. I mean, are we talking about setting? We're talking about the city. So it was important for me to both look at that event and step back from that and try to put that spin as a mystery, but also then the notion of looking at the city that I grew up in, Los Angeles, and what did it look like, about a year and a half coming out of 92, when the message from the federal government, unlike Watts of 65, in Watts of 65, there was federal largesse. In 92, when George Bush the Elder toured the city, he essentially said, "Well, it's a shame, but we ain't got no money for you. See ya." So the idea that then this spawned Rebuild LA, which is public-private partnership, et cetera, and to some extent, this is also the tail end of Tom Bradley's time, the first black mayor of LA, but he'd been mayor for 20 years. And he and Gates hated each other, and there's a whole other interesting dimension to them because they both had kids who were addicts, and the one thing that you think would have brought them together on a human level couldn't because of all the other stuff between them. Anyway, all that to say is that sort of suffuses the city then, where the city was at, and I wanted to try to capture that in that first novel.
And you wanted to kind of show the city as it was. I think for me,
right.
It was showing, you brought up Miami Vice earlier, Chris, but also the idea of showing the real Miami and the real city, as opposed to, the warts and all idea instead of the romanticized version.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, the irony for me is when I was a kid, my uncle took me to see the Tony Rome movie, and I wrote about it in Noir City. I wrote a piece about it.
That's great.
And that really affected me. And as I look back when I was writing the piece, and I was saying that city cannot be like that.
Right.
It was like it just was this little. Yes, it showed a little maybe redneck slice that you might have at the Keys or something like that. But I mean, it was just not. It was definitely not anything real. It wasn't even like Miami Beach real. Sinatra and then all his cronies, you know. I mean, I could not believe that was really Miami.
It's not.
but it probably says we should revive Tony Rome, totally retrofit him for for today's audience.
Yeah, retrofit. I like that. I like retrofit.
That would be hilarious. Oh my God. I remember
Were there any Latino people in that movie at all? I'm trying to remember.
I don't know. I don't remember. Because he did 2 or 3 of them, didn't he? There was more than one. He made more than one.
I think he made
Lady in Cement. Lady in Cement was another one.
That's the one I remember. Lady in Cement. I remember Lady in Cement.
The first one was better.
That's normally the case. You got Coppola now. Coppola talking about he's redone the Godfather 3, which was a terrible movie. I mean, there was nothing credible about that when I sat in the movie theater and watched this with Andy Garcia as James Caan's son, and George Hamilton doing the role of Robert Duvall. They wouldn't pay Robert Duvall because he wanted the same money as Pacino.
Right.
I mean, what a horror show this movie was.
No Tom Hagen, you lose the heart of the trilogy. But I'm a Godfather 3 apologist, so.
There you go.
I'm telling you this. Even worse for me was Apocalypse Now when he put out that redo. There was a redo with all these extra scenes thrown in there. I went to see this, and I have more objections with the redo than I do with the original war.
Wait.
You know what I'm saying?
Is this the redo where they go to the French rubber?
They go.
About an hour and a half.
Get this out of here. Get this movie off the screen. What the hell happened to him? I thought you were drugged out back then. You know what I mean?
Well, can we talk about Scarface though?
That's now you're talking Miami for.
I want to know. All right, here's my thing. I'm going to ask.
Under the highway.
It was only Stephen Bauer was probably the only Latino in that movie too.
Is he Latino?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He changed his name. He was on a PBS show called Que Pasa USA, which was a sitcom about a Cuban-American family, and he was Richie Echevarria, and then Scarface came out, and he was Stephen Bauer. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah. Because you know what? He shows up in he's in a Better Call Saul.
Yeah, Better Call Saul.
Yeah, he's the cartel boss of Better Call Saul.
He created the niche for himself.
He did.
Yeah,
he did. There you go. All right, but anyway, you can't. That's pretty good.
I don't think that was even filmed in Miami. Like Dexter? You see Dexter, it's set in Miami, and then suddenly the palm trees are definitely California palm trees.
That's right. Long Beach, in fact. That's right.
You go into Hollywood or TV, you're going to get mythology. And, I remember when I was a kid, the movies that really, opened my eyes living in New York and all of this were The French Connection. And then, say, the Friends of Eddie Coyle. These are the ones that really, said, wow, I love this genre. This is where I can create. I think the first short story I wrote was about this political leader who was controlling the president and wouldn't even feed him. And they caught the president in a grocery store stealing steaks down his pants. And it was a big, they were putting on a big thing about catching the president shoplifting. So, I just love that sort of, let's just strip away everything and let's put the greatest at the same plane as everyone, and let's all start swimming in the same water. I think that's the way to go. Don't bring everybody up to that level. Bring them all down here, baby, and let's see.
That's what noir is, being pulled down to the bottom. Being cornered and being forced to make decisions that you would not normally make. Like the normal person cornered and left to their own devices, and really and you're watching the collapse. Like there's no guaranteed happy ending. It's kind of visceral and really terrible. You're watching people at their worst make their worst decisions and have to pay the ultimate price. So that's to me what noir is, and it's really amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There you go.
Yes, as I've said, it's not it's people making sure others don't get what they want. That's the basic premise of the what's against everybody, because that whole force of life is against you getting what you want. And so you've got so many people, such a majority of people are going to get in that way, and there's all your characters right there that carry your action. And it's nice to take that and have it, read it, instead of having it happen to you for real. Because you can escape for a minute. It's what we were talking about at the beginning. Get me out of this, and that's how to do it.
Can I was just going to ask Pete and Alex and Gary. I mean, it seems to be when you look at Miami and you look at LA and you're trying to write noir. I mean, for an East Coast guy like me, I mean, even though Miami's on the East Coast, I mean, they're very similar. I mean, we have this kind of northern snobbery where, we basically look at a place like Miami, a place like LA as basically a bunch of strip malls with palm trees, which is largely true. Because there are no, I always was fascinated by you guys and by everybody who's writing in those settings where you create a noir story out of something which, you don't have the row house grit. You know what I'm saying? You don't have the dark, closed-in streets. You have wide open boulevards where people are, gunning Mustang 5.0s down the street, and you guys can, and the palm trees and the overlay of all the glitz. But you guys, definitely don't have to dig far to find the bad stuff under the glitz. I've always been really impressed by that because, I always figured, gosh, it was going to be hard to create the place as a character, but you guys, just rip it open. And I just wanted to just, give you an applause for that. But again, I mean, it does come from a place of kind of East Coast, maybe artistic snobbery, because we think, and it's like New York stuff, we think we're the only gritty part, or you can't find grit except in DC and Philly and Newark and Boston, and places like that. But it's amazing when you get it in these other locales. The stories are just incredible. Or even out on an Indian reservation, something like that, because we've seen that too.
Yeah.
You put humidity in a beach in something, you've got a different energy. It's just a different energy, but it doesn't make it. There is still no less amount of percentage of people who are going to try to keep you from getting what you want. So it's just how you craft that. That's what the whole scene is about. It's taking that's really out there and putting it where you want it, so we can escape from the reality. That's a beautiful thing.
The contrast. I don't want to speak for LA, but in Miami, it's the contrast. You have this tropical paradise, and all these bad things are happening, and there's a lot of skirting the rules, and there's it's a doorway to the Caribbean, to Latin America. It's it's a nexus point. It's got a little bit of the South in it too. So it's a really there's the palette is very large. You can pick any kind of story you want to tell, and you'll find the space there. And when it gets really hot, people get really uncomfortable.
A lot has changed. A lot has changed from the early, like say Thompson and that time, from Hammett to Thompson, in that since that it's the early 60s, that drugs have taken over basically the where the money is. So that kind of tells the story. Of course, there's romance and this, that, and the other. But when you come back to what's really going on the street and how you can succeed in a hurry, the drug culture from the 60s on has kind of dictated that who we are too, having that in our lives since then. Where it was more on the outskirts, I think, from. You had a Cokie and a Yeg and this, that, and the other. They weren't, so it's such a major part of, smoking a little grass, fine.
Right.
But once the kids in San Francisco and then they equated them to the, protests and then wrong and then, the Black Panthers and then heroin, that's just turned everything upside down from that point on, from the idealism at that point. So there's a lot of noir that began then. And, maybe we're getting out of the true drug culture you know, and who knows what we're moving into now? Technology.
Yeah.
You know, just being in our own little worlds.
I still don't get what bitcoins are, but apparently you can make money at it. But I'd be damned if it could, how that happens.
I can't see a noir tale about a guy mining bitcoins.
Well,
one of us are right now.
I'm sure somebody's working on it. I'm sure somebody's working on it.
They'll make money. I read a
Yeah.
great heist. You got to read about the heist they did in Iceland.
Yeah.
Did you ever read about this?
No.
Man, it's one of the coolest heists ever. They got away with millions of dollars just sitting there mining, and they knew exactly what they were doing, and they got in there and they got away,
Amazing.
you know, scot-free. So I mean, but what did they do with the money? Are they still sitting there mining? I mean, I don't know. Do they have any time to enjoy this money? I don't know. I'm with you.
I'm too much. You know, speaking of noir, I'm such a fan of, you know, the Westlake, the Parker novels, right? And, you know,
sure.
Like Parker's like, well, if it's not cash, what can I? You know, I mean, what can I do? I mean, you know,
only cash.
I gotta steal cash, man. I don't know what you guys talking about.
Yeah, and like Thief, James Caan, I only steal cash, diamonds, no home invasion, no stocks,
exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So now, I mean, they're not even leaving. They're sitting there like us. And all four of us right now could be mining bitcoins and stealing, robbing, you know, but we wouldn't be where we are. But maybe it would be a good cover. Maybe we should try this. It's a good cover. We'll do a weekly.
In the Robert Parker remake with Mark Wahlberg, and somebody's telling him the stuff is stored in the cloud. He's like, "Take me to this cloud." Spencer, take me to this cloud. I want to find
cloud now. Exactly.
But we have to realize that this is going to be shifting. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're kind of like the, you know,
but still, no matter. You know, the forms may change, but what drives noir is all the stuff we've been talking about, which is, you know, it's greed, it's avarice, you know, it's lust, it's desire. I want my neighbor's wife, I want her now. I don't, you know what I mean? Yeah, you know, it's all the basic human drives that we've yet to shake off. Believe me, right? So it's not like, you know what I mean? You know, the forms will change, right? Robot cars and driverless this and driverless trucks and whatever. But yeah, we'll still figure out how to give an edge to it. You know, the human edge.
We will, absolutely, we will.
It's those little character weaknesses that just shatter, you know, when these little cracks in people, and they just find those moments that they break, like, you know, asking for your neighbor's wife, or, you know, wanting that big financial break, or figuring out how to get money from Bitcoin. You know, it's just human frailty.
That's right. There's got to be if there's an angle to work it, we'll figure it out. That's it.
Okay, well, we've got Scavenger up here is along the bottom. We want you to go to the Strand Bookstore, go to their website, order any book that you've ever wanted.
That's right.
Any book. We have some suggestions here for you. With, there
you go.
Me and the three wonderful writers you see here in front of you at this moment. We want you to buy books, and you'll always be inspired. And who knows, you might be writing them yourselves one day. You know, another young guy sitting in a bookstore, or a young woman, or, you know, whomever, sitting there and inspired by something you read and changes your life, and you were able to inspire others. That's the best. That's the best I see that we can do. And we're doing it, you know, all four of us, and many others that we admire and respect. So, what else you guys think you want to?
I think that's a wrap.
I think we've done pretty well. We've accomplished our goal, and we've definitely put up some words, some love for the Strand and for each other and for our genre. And you know, I think all those things are sitting pretty and prettier in the world right now because of our evening. So it's a good thing.
That's a good thing. Back to the score.
Yeah. Let's come up with a score now. We got to come up with a real score. Well, I'll tell you guys one day about my kind of reality way back when. So we'll have that time to
Very good.
spend together. Maybe a VoucherCon in August.
Yeah.
If they have it
If
on.
they-
I don't know if it'll be live yet.
I don't know, baby. That's right.
Being
That's right.
in New Orleans, they're going to try, but I don't know that.
I don't
you
know.
we
Well, I
want to
just-
get that.
Right. How well does the vaccine mix with booze? I mean, that's maybe I don't
You're
just
right.
thinking.
You're right.
I'm just
you're
thinking.
right.
Just thinking ahead. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
might not. Yeah, we might have to wait. My friend took the vaccine and he got the Pfizer one, and he said the second one he's doing trials.
Oh wow! Yeah.
He said the second one just knocked him on his ass.
Oh wow!
2 days. Knocked him on his ass for 2 days.
Yeah.
And then he's I mean, he might have gotten a placebo, but he doubts it because
Right.
happening. So we'll see. Hopefully they start rolling them out, and hopefully you don't get a little syringe with Donald Trump's name on it. He has to sign each syringe.
Sign each syringe.
Get
That'd
rid
be
of
hilarious.
it. It's got to be out.
That would be hilarious.
That's right. He's got the check. Give us another check, buddy. What the hell's the matter with you? Unbelievable. Well, here we are in America, and we're still creating and just be inspired by us.
Right on.
All right, that's all we can say.
That's it.
Thanks so much,
Live
Peter.
on this side.
Thank you, Peter.
Good to
All
see
right,
you guys.
I'm going to take
Same here, Alex.
I'm taking us offline. Thank you so much for coming.
Right.
Strand Bookstore.